Hi, readers. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Katie.
And welcome to Not Another Heroine, the podcast where we break down the best and worst fictional heroines, those swashbuckling ladies who have to work a little harder than expected for their happy ending.
This week, we're finishing up Crown Duel by Sherwood Smith, otherwise known as Can We Talk About the Hair?
We kind of ended on a cliffhanger last week. We introduced the Marquis of Chevreith and his many roles and outfits. Interrogator, ridiculous courtier, plume-helmed commander. I mean, I really just like saying plume helms. It's giving me flashbacks to those god-awful marching band hats. I may or may not have worn one at one point.
What?
I should not have brought that up.
You cannot just pull that out in the middle of an episode.
They were so bad. They were awful.
I mean, I imagined it the same way, like exactly dead. I just straight up from the top of his head, all like flingy in the wind. Yeah. Sidebar over.
It's a dashing helm with.
Dashing is not the word I'd use.
Well, you know, it's yeah.
It's better than the floppy hat.
I
don't know. Now that I say that, I'm not. This man just has a thing with weird hats.
We need to move on from the hats.
Yeah,
there's hats lots of over. I'm sure there will be more opportunities to discuss Chevreith's outfit choices.
True.
Anyway, after a somewhat uneventful joint horseback ride to the capital, the Marquis escorts Mel to her audience with King Geldran.
Ugh.
Yeah, keep in mind, this chick, she's had a rough go of it. She can't walk right. That whole like illegal bear trap thing. She's she's real dirty.
Yeah.
Her clothes are lacking. Not in a sexy like token female in a character in a video game kind of way. Like she's not. She has absolutely zero experience with court. On top of it all, it's like this is not a good setup for our heroine. Like, can you imagine?
No. Absolutely not. No fucking way.
I mean, I get anxious over a conference call.
Girl, same.
Like, no way in hell would I be holding it together in Mel's shoes. But, you know, she limps into this grand throne room with her ever-present, I don't give a flying fuck about your fancy dresses attitude, and basically tells King Geldran to go eat a big one and leave the magical tree people alone.
I feel like this was one of the first moments where I liked Mel. I thought she had all of this gravitas and all kinds of confidence that if I were in her shoes, absolutely no fucking way. Like the scene where they start laughing, like I would have died right there. Just like falling over and they'd be like, oh, that's weird.
Well, it's like she takes herself way too seriously in the beginning,
right?
Like this is a very serious scene, but it's a serious scene where it's justified for her to be a little bit more
extra.
But
to good ends. Like it worked out. I'm glad that she did that. I'm glad that Sherwood Smith wrote her that way, because any other kind of characterization at that point would have fallen not flat, but you'd think of her as weaker, and not in like a unreasonable way, but this just shows what kind of character she is. Like does not care what other people think. She's going to be like loud and crazy and like confident, weirdly in particular points but not in others. But this was like her moment, and it's like, okay, this is what kind of character we're like dealing with.
Well, and it's jarring too, right? Because in the moment she has this perception of herself as this woebegone kind of figure, but everyone else sees her and is impressed.
I love that dichotomy. I think it's later when she finds out that's how other people saw her, because at the time you're like, oh my god, these people are assholes. Like she's obviously hurt. Her foot is fucked up by this bear trap, and she's still, you know, limping her way on her own to the front to the throne, and this guy's a total dick. But after reading like later in the book that they were all on her side and like, holy shit, this girl has balls. It's like, oh, okay, that's good that they actually were real people and weren't assholes the whole time. And it's just one person that's an asshole.
Exactly. And if you can't hear it in the background right now, that is a squeaky dog toy that we're going to remove. So stay with us.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He looks so handsome though.
And we're back.
Sans squeaky toy.
Sans squeaky toy. We should be okay moving on.
Yes.
Now I've completely forgotten where we were at.
She's terrified about being in front of this big, powerful dude in gross clothes, which I would
that's
too.
okay.
Reasonable.
Second, can you imagine question? But the Marquis, like you and I both know how this story ends, right? But imagine being the Marquis in this situation, like holding this tiny little woman up, knowing like, ugh.
Yeah. I feel like he would not be conflicted, but he would have two major like feelings at the time. I feel like part of him would be really angry with King Galdrin because I feel like all of this is very inauthentic and mean and cruel, and I feel like he's not that kind of person, as we find out later. But I feel like another part of him is also like, fuck yeah, Mel, like I didn't know you had those kind of balls, like I have respect for you. And I feel like it's almost one of those turning points where he's like, okay, you're a chaotic storm cloud of a person, but like a good chaotic storm cloud.
Chaotic good.
Yeah, chaotic. Oh my God, that's Mel. Chaotic good.
Chaotic good for sure. That is yeah. Okay. Well, Mel is
humiliated.
Humiliated, yes. But particularly because she's a countess. Her mother was a descendant of the former ruling party. I forget exactly how that shakes out, but like her mother is like prior royalty. And so Mel's here representing her family in the worst way possible. As expected, right? She gets thrown in the dungeon to await her almost guaranteed execution date. This is not a Chivrea style dungeon where she continues to get medical care and enough food. No, this sucks, frankly. Mel's foot, which was on track to heal throughout her journey to the capital, starts to fester again. She's starving. I mean, she's been starving the entire story, but she's still starving here. She's cold. She almost has some sort of nasty dungeon flu thing going on.
Yeah.
But you know what, Katie? Mel probably would have been a lot better off had she stuck to her original plan and kept her identity close hold and remained in Chivrea's enemy camp.
Yep.
But no, our favorite character, fucking Bran, just had to execute his half-assed rescue attempt.
There are so many points in this story where you could say something similar and it still remains true. Like you could take that comment out of context and put it in a different context somewhere later in this book, and it's like, oh wow, yeah, that's still true. Fuck Bran.
Our main conclusion from this story is fuck Bran. God. But all is not lost though. When Mel starts to give up internally, like she's in a dungeon, she's dying, she's going to die pretty soon. She's resigned to her inevitable death and the destruction of the Covenant. And then a mysterious benefactor or benefactors seem to take charge of her prison experience. Like a blanket starts appearing every night and is promptly removed the next morning. Yeah, that's not suspicious at all. She starts to receive better food and water. Those lords and ladies who watched her ballsy confrontation with King Galdrin start to appear to observe her throughout the day. This is all weird.
I liked this because I feel like it's one of those points where Sherwood Smith kind of inserts that people are complex. They're not just good or bad.
Oh, I like that.
And yeah, she has some shitty guards, but at the same time, I feel like probably half the guards are like, this is just a young girl. She's royalty. She, at a base level, shouldn't be treated this way. So it's just nice that she can kind of show some humanity in there, but also show the conflict that people are having. Like they want to help her, but also they can't help her.
And this is such a like good contrast to other similar scenes we've read 100 times where our lead heroine is thrown in the dungeon and she's suffering and dying and there's no hope, there's no glimmer, there's no humanity worked into the other characters. Everyone's bad and she's the only good one. And this is just not the case here.
Or when the only humanity shown is by the other main guy love interest.
The dude.
Yeah. It's like, no, there's other people that are going to see this and feel conflicted and maybe do their little tidbit to help out. It's not just going to be that one person that cares. And it makes it a lot more realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perfect. But Mel she's obtuse. Like maybe
really? That's new information.
I mean, she's maybe a little too willing to assume the worst in people. She's already prejudiced against. Shivraeth.
Mhm.
Just gonna put that out there. So when her family's loyal spy Asmus,
Asmus.
how do we say that name?
I just see the AZ and like skip past the rest.
We'll go.
But
We'll call him Az.
that
no, not Az.
Oh yeah, that's gonna sound weird over.
We'll call him Azzy.
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 That's appropriate.
Yeah. This is a character we're introduced to in the very beginning of the book, but he's low key. Like
Mhm.
exactly what a spy should be, like forgettable. Azzy appears one night to orchestrate her rescue.
Ooh, the intrigue.
What exactly does this rescue entail?
What doesn't this rescue entail? This is a very drawn
It
out.
is very like, do you know, Katie, by any chance, whose carriage it is that Mel is smuggled out of the capital in?
Ooh, please tell me.
Princess freaking Alestra of Rensselaer.
That's Akko, because who is that?
None other than the Marquis of Chevreus' mother.
That's double Akko.
That's weird. And Mel thinks it's weird, right? But she's yeah. Anyway, this is where the politics and the world building starts to get more introduced. It's complicated, but in a good way.
Yes.
In short, Rensselaer is a large and very powerful province of Ramalna that until a few centuries prior to like Mel's events, it was its own sort of mini kingdom.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
It's cool. I like this little touch of this. So Princess Alestra and her husband are still big players in Ramalna politics and are currently in the line of succession, which means so is their son.
Yeah. They have a lot to lose, I feel like is the key word.
I mean, it appears to Mel, though, as if Princess Alestra is oblivious to the fact that a stowaway is lodged in her carriage trunk.
So that is the part I love about this whole scene, because you kind of come from the impression that this is all really good luck, but it's also just like staggered and staccato enough when she's talking that you're like, does she know? Like, is there more to this story than we think? But it's also just coming from Mel's perspective. So you assume the worst in people too, because she just defaults to that. But it's just so weird and like weird enough that you're kind of like, your eyes squint a little bit and you're like, that's suspicious. That's weird.
It's like the benefit of a third person narrative almost. Just that's kind of the style of it. Or the way she develops the other characters.
Yes, yeah.
It's
so you have all of Mel's biases when you're interacting with these people through her lens. So you assume the worst of them or like question their motives, but then
you still pick up on the weirdness.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, all Mel knows is what Azzy knows, and that is like his unspecified contacts and resources in Ramalna City like indicated that the princess's carriage would be the carriage to get tucked into. But shockingly, Mel makes it out of the capital undiscovered and manages to exit the carriage in a small town with no one, including the princess, the wiser. Or so she thinks.
I love that part too, because you can feel the tension because she's not sure if she's going to get out. And I feel like all other books, she would immediately get caught and like yanked out. But you're like, oh shit, she's gonna make it.
Like as a reader, like she's done nothing but mess up the entire story. Like this is gonna go wrong again.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden, magically, coincidentally, it turns out okay,
right? Like what do we even do as a reader at this point? Like, do we take a break? No, we don't take a break. We keep going. That's what we do.
Full send.
But there is a bit of a lag in the story here.
Yeah, so full send with a little asterisk after it.
Yeah. Mel is bounding around the countryside, trying to avoid capture by the Marquis of Chevreus and the, all caps, evil Baron, who have made a wager against each other as to who can find, capture, and return Mel to King Geldrin first. So, by the way, the evil Baron is the same dude whose forces she and Bran successfully harassed and turned around at the start of the war.
Oh, I totally skipped past. Like I knew, but I also didn't know. So he's out for revenge.
Oh, the Baron is like personally invested in capturing Mel because this is the girl who caused him to lose his job and be replaced by Chevreus.
So it's personal.
It's very personal. Like evil Baron is going to be real evil.
And he's mad.
Yeah, like
and bitter.
But again, Mel successfully avoids capture for quite a while. Like at what point she receives help from a middle-class farming family. And this is the part of the story that goes on a little bit longer than you would expect, but I think the author uses Mel's interactions with the family to underscore how very little Mel understands about the world. Like Mel and her brother are all about going to war to save the trees and stop these crippling tax laws, but they don't really consider the implications of a civil war would have on the general populace.
True.
Yeah, it's either like the farmer himself or his wife, I don't remember which, that like acknowledges how unfair these things are. Like the tree thing and then the taxes.
Oh yeah, it's the wife.
It's the wife.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's another cool lead female character, not lead,
Yeah.
but female character that provides.
Yeah, because she makes like a hard decision to protect her family.
Mhm.
And the hard decision is, do I keep this, fugitive in my house and not tell anyone and hope no one finds out? Or do I like turn her loose and say, like, I know you're all fucked up and you're about to die, but like, good luck. It's either you or me.
There's a healthy balance that she finds here.
Yes. Yeah.
Like the farmer's wife, like she kind of articulates that they would rather keep the current king in place than suffer having military troops like traipsing about the countryside, destroying crops, looting, and having like conscription go into effect. Like when, as a country, they just got done fighting like the pirate wars like a couple decades ago.
Yeah. I liked this part too because it was a subtle way for Sherwood Smith to like introduce some world building on the outside that's not super overwhelming, but it kind of gives you a little bit of context of what people are thinking, but in a very subtle way where it's just like little hints of like, oh, like there was some wars ago, like, oh, there's conscription and they're just now getting over it. Like it's all these little tidbits that are not overwhelming, but they kind of build everything while you're going through the story.
It makes me wonder how many stories she had already had in her head to like also write when she wrote this one.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to George R.R. Martin, where he has like 80 billion years of backstory, and then he writes the actual story, and there's all these like little like, oh, there was a civil war 600 years ago, and that's why this kingdom is now, part of the seven whatevers. And yeah, it's less overwhelming and more accessible though when Sherwood
So
Smith
much
does
more
it.
accessible. Thank you very much, Sherwood Smith. Anyway, the conversation with the farmer's wife, it really sticks with Mel. And that's one of the great things that I really liked about her as a heroine. Mel has strong convictions, but she's not so rigid in her beliefs that she's unwilling to listen to other opinions or contemplate like alternative hypotheses.
It was also her first, well, maybe not her first, but her first big real coming to Jesus moment.
That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah,
for her.
that like maybe the people aren't quite as hyped up about breaking the covenant as Mel is, and there's maybe like more complexities in the world than just good and bad. It's like her, okay, like maybe I can see this from other people's perspective, and there's other ways we can go about this than just overthrowing the king and finding someone else and
yeah, the
etc.
She can admit when she's wrong.
Yeah,
and like made a mistake. Like I can't. I kind of struggle with that.
Oh, girl, same.
So yeah, good job.
So I respect her. She can do it.
This is like you grow with Mel throughout the story, and you just like her more and more.
Absolutely.
So Mel departs this farming family for their safety. Like she's like, no, I don't want to jeopardize you. That's the last thing I want. So she goes away. Galdron's forces are nearby. They're going door to door. She needs to just blend generally among the populace,
which I feel like is hard. I can't even imagine because you're stressed out, so you look anxious, and so that's a red flag. And this isn't a time where people didn't, willy-nilly go from city to city. Like they would look at newcomers and be like, "That's weird. Like,
you
who
don't
the fuck
belong
are you?"
here.
Yeah, and then she's also like, like in a hat, sweating. She's like, "Oh my god, don't look at me!" Like the shifty eyes. It's like, okay, yeah, right there is probably the fugitive walking down the street.
But can we talk? Can we talk about the hair?
Oh, the hair.
The hair. Maybe we should call this episode The Hair.
That's, the hair. There it is. Done.
It basically goes down to her butt.
Yep.
And it's beautiful. It's this bright auburn, not distinctive at all.
No, not at all.
And like, I get it. She's been growing her hair out for years. This is fucked up some sort of homage to her dead mother. But
yeah,
really?
Yeah.
This is a vanity thing.
I was surprised that she didn't immediately cut it off.
I know.
Because for the readers, or I guess listeners in this context, but she doesn't cut it off at any point in...
Never cuts her hair.
At all, right? I don't think throughout the whole book.
No, there's not a single scene that I can recall where she cuts her hair.
No. And girl, if you really needed to escape, that's the first thing to go. Because it's also probably all gross and like,
Yeah,
like she got bathed or whatever at the farmer's house, but running through the sticks and like on horseback and wind, like if you have the windows open, your hair gets fucked up. Like,
right. Like, I mean, to say nothing of how heavy it would be.
oh yeah.
Ugh.
I can't even imagine. And then you get like sticks and shit in it, and then it's even heavier, and then it's like greasy the whole time.
Ugh,
I
yes.
know.
Mm.
I was thinking about that because she's out like running away from King Galdrin's troops like for a week, like
weeks, I think, on end.
like months.
Mhm.
Yeah. So her hair is probably super gross. 21st century thoughts.
Yeah. But maybe Sherwood Smith is trying to avoid the cliche of like, oh, I am
yeah,
gonna
like
chop all my hair off and be one of the boys or blend in. And
oh, that's not where I thought you were going. I thought kind of the cliche that a lot of authors do where the main character heroine is obviously struggling and fucked up and hurt and dirty, but they always talk about how they're like subtly beautiful still. And it's like, no, if you're running out on the streets in the woods for months on end, you're gonna be disgusting. Like, have you guys seen Alone on Netflix? Like those people look like swamp monsters after like 30 days.
it's so bad. And that's another cool thing about Mel and the descriptors used for Mel is she's never described as like beautiful.
That's true.
And she very well is. Like if you look at the first like cover art for this
Oh,
book,
yeah.
like
Mhm.
I mean she's pretty.
Mhm.
But the characters never mention it.
That's nice. It's
Yeah.
refreshing.
And she doesn't hyper focus on it herself either.
That's also refreshing because it's hard to try to come into a book and be like, well, from the personal context of like, I don't want to focus on my appearance too much. Like Instagram has, made women look a very certain way. And if you don't look that way, like you sucks. Like, don't know what to tell you, but like get some plastic surgery or something. So it's like nice to come into this book where beauty isn't really a main theme or like a continuing conversation, because there's some books that everyone's beautiful, the main character is beautiful, and it's like, oh, so these adventures only happen to beautiful people.
It's not actively avoided either. It's just not a thing. And it doesn't occur to you as a reader, right? Like either.
Yeah, because it doesn't happen in everyday life that you're like constantly thinking about how good looking people are.
Maybe
it's
for
like,
some people.
that's fair. Okay. Heavy caveat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Henry Cavill, anyone?
Oh my God. Anyway.
So okay, Mel is still successfully avoiding her pursuers.
Good for her.
Yeah. At one point, though, she's just chilling on the side of the road, trying to blend in still with this like caravan of traders. And they're sitting on the side of the road because King Galdrin's troops are riding by, and the evil Baron and Shivraeth are at the front.
Oh, my heart rate started increasing when I read this scene.
So Mel like huddles further into her peasant garb and looks up just as Shivraeth turns ever so slightly and makes eye contact with her.
Oh, I got shivers when I was reading this too. Like I imagined her just like super fucking nervous and like sweating and like, oh my God, don't look at him. And then all of a sudden it's like eye contact.
But
like, oh!
this guy doesn't bat an eye. No smirk, no wink, no emotion whatsoever. And Mel wonders, holy shit, is my disguise really that good? Like, no, girl. No, it's not.
No, it is just not.
This is just one cool motherfucker.
I love this whole interaction because Mel immediately is like, oh, he didn't recognize me. It's like, no, girl, you dumbass. Like, obviously.
Oh my gosh. I love that scene.
She's so naive, but in like a funny, refreshing way. Like,
delightful way.
Obviously not. And it's funny too, because as the reader, you're like, no, you're not that lucky.
But we'll go along with it for now.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she escapes again. For some reason or another, Shivraeth doesn't sound the alarm.
That's suspicious.
Right? He just keeps riding alongside of the Baron. And like this gives Mel another chance to get away. Like, okay, lather, rinse, repeat. Like
that does happen like
a lot.
Many times.
So I don't even know, right? Like this series of close calls continues to happen and Mel stays like just half a step ahead of her pursuers. It's a little exhausting to read. And even Mel is tired of it at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
She kind of gets to the point where she can't see any good ending for herself. And Like we really need the story to gather some more momentum and push towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
But like as if things couldn't possibly get any worse. Like she runs out of food and she gets hungry.
Oh God, I cannot imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I've made some pretty poor decisions in the name of appetite, but like Mel,
I forgot about the scene.
This is okay.
This is the scene.
This is Mel goes in for the kill on this
my
one.
God.
Like,
The fucking audacity of this woman is just primo A plus.
mhm.
Oh my
like
God.
this scene is so freaking good. I want to see this scene in a movie.
Oh yes,
It
it
would-
would be like perfect,
Mhm.
like indescribable, like the moment that's in the trailer probably too, and
Yeah.
you're like, whoa,
It's action. It's funny. Okay.
Yes.
Mel is hanging out in a busy tavern.
Which girl? Mistake number one, but
Mhm,
continue.
And she knows it too. She's like, oh, this is probably wrong. I'm going to do it anyway.
This isn't a good idea.
It's late at night. There's some sort of country fair style dancing going on. And she's tucked herself into a corner, trying to like eye an opportunity to steal some food. But then she sees him,
The Baron.
the Baron,
The Baron.
the evil Baron.
Dun dun dun.
He's just chowing down at his own personal table, giving off like full entitled rich dude vibes.
And the table's like covered in food too.
Yeah.
I love that little detail.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, so he's like a real asshole because you know he's not going to eat it all.
No, he just wanted to try everything. I mean,
Ugh, gross.
so Mel knows before she even like fully conceptualizes this plan that this is going to be a dumb idea.
Yeah, dumb idea. TM, like
Mhm.
full copyright.
But she's hungry. Okay, she's hungry. He's an asshole, and like better yet, it would be funny. Like Mel even says this herself. It would be funny.
I love that part because we all have had those like ideas where it's like this isn't going to go well, but like the comedic value, like I have to.
Yeah, I can't not do this.
Yeah.
So she waits for like the right timing and then weaves into the crowd of dancers near the Baron's table. Like using some dirty street fighting moves, she trips the drunkest dancer right into the Baron.
Loved it.
And all the commotion, Mel darts in, grabs some bread, a sandwich, something off the Baron's plate, shoves it in her mouth, and then gets the fuck out of there as fast as she possibly can.
I loved this whole
I
like,
know.
oh my God.
Like, but wait, there's more, right?
Yep.
She makes it outside the tavern, and there's like a zoned out looking guard holding the Baron's magnificent white horse.
I lost it.
Still trying to cram the sandwich down her throat. Mel scrambles onto this horse and just takes off.
I love it. This is such like Mel style, everything executed exactly in character, like fucking perfect.
Like this was probably the dumbest thing that happens to her throughout the whole book.
Yeah.
But
And she did it herself.
all by herself.
Yep.
No, the image, like I can't even be mad at her. She rides away on this horse laughing around her sandwich. It's the kind of like hysterical laughing where she's thinking, man, I fully lost it now. My life is definitely over. But it was
I'm gonna die.
totally worth it to see the look on the Baron's face.
Yep.
Mel doesn't make it very far. She gets captured and dragged to the evil Baron's evil fortress, where she is immediately taken to a torture chamber.
This made me sad. I was
Mhm.
hoping that, we'd have like this dramatic getaway attempt and it would be successful, but that's kind of asking a lot.
Right. She got away with a lot with the horse and the sandwich and all
Yeah,
of that,
yeah.
but
Yeah. And it's also like a 180 on your emotions because you're like,
Mhm.
oh my God, she's going to make it. And then it's like, ooh, she is in a worse spot than she was originally.
and she's kind of like given up herself. Like
Mm-hmm.
she's in a dark place right now.
Well, fair. You're in a torture
Mhm.
chamber.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, so she gets tied to a chair by the Baron and his minions, and the Baron promises to return shortly. Like he darkly warns the nondescript yet clearly sinister torture master to wait for him to get back before they, quote, start anything.
and I feel like it's worth mentioning too that this scene, while we kind of like talk about it like happy and funny, it was super dark to read because you feel, because it's in, again, first person. So Mel's like sadness about all this and her like defeat, you feel it. Like you're like, she's not going to make it out of this.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not gonna wait. Like the torture master is snickering. Like he
Yeah.
starts fiddling with his tools, like the teeth pulling pliers, But he finally settles on pulling out this flaming hot brand.
Oh my god.
Mel is terrified, like completely terrified, so terrified that she sneezes.
What?
Yep, sneezes. I had to double check this, like go back to the book and because I thought she like looked down, was like, "No, I'm gonna die." No, she just sneezes. It's the brand.
That is so. I fucking love that. It's
Mhm.
so on brand for Mel. Like, just like in the face of this absolute horror, and she's like, "Achoo!"
Yeah, achoo! And then she looks up and like sees an expression of surprise fixed on the torturer's face, right above a knife protruding from his throat.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
Oh, okay. I trust my timing was more or less advantageous, the Marquis of Chevreuse asks, indicating the knife. My soul.
Oh my god!
Talk about like full body warm fuzzies on this scene, man.
Mhm.
Like
I imagined him like standing in the doorway, like backlit, and then he just has this fucking bomb ass one liner.
another like great Netflix scene right here.
Yep, he knows how to make a fucking entrance.
Yeah. Like of course though, like we get another Fade to Black scene
Of
because
course.
like I don't blame Mel in the slightest. Like,
Yeah.
this is a lot to process.
That's a lot going on.
Like I've read this book a few times, like and certain scenes more than others, but this particular one has stuck with me since I was a kid. Like
Mhm.
Chevreuse is just so damn memorable, and he doesn't even really get that much page time here. It's like less than a paragraph. Mel nearly gets tortured. He shows up, says his sassy comment, and then cut.
Yep. I feel like he thought about what he was gonna say. Like
Oh.
knowing, like finishing the whole book and knowing what I know about Chevreuse, like he for sure, he's like had a brainstorming session, had like outside opinions. He's like, is this too hokey? And it's like, no, just the perfect amount.
He probably waited too. He's probably standing in the doorway the whole time, right? Like just around the corner, Baron leaves, he pops around. No, he doesn't have any tools yet. Oh wait, the brand's out. Now it's my time.
It's money time, go time.
Yep. All right, like when Mel finally comes around, she is trying and failing to put all of these pieces together. Like, what is Chevreuse? I'm gonna mutilate that name as we go. Like,
It's a weird. You
Yeah,
just see the SHEV and you're like,
Chev.
oh, that guy.
Chev.
Chev.
Like, what's he really trying to accomplish? Like, why does he keep helping her when she knows he's got to have some sort of like negative ulterior motive?
I felt that way too when I was trying to read through this and she has all of her confusion. Like the first time I know for sure that I read this, I was like 20, maybe younger than that. I had no fucking idea. This was way too much intrigue. It went straight over my head. I'm like, wait, so he's a good guy now, but like maybe not a good guy.
Like what? Like gray area, right? Like,
Yeah. I was very confused. So I get it, Mel.
Yeah, we're with you on
Same.
this one. Mel's got an entire horseback ride to Rensselaer's to figure these things out. But she's escorted not by Chevreuse, but by some of his loyal personal guard. Chevreuse is off doing mysterious Chevreuse things. So Mel blacks out. After Chevreuse saves her, he disappears and she wakes up on a horse with his personal guard. Meet Captain Nissarin.
Ah,
Mhm.
I love her.
Like, Mel is our heroine, our lead, and we love her. But I would kill for Nissarin to have her own story.
Yes, I want to know everything about her backstory
Mhm.
because, like, for context, if you're someone that hasn't read this book but you're listening to it because you're like, "Ooh, like, do I want to read this book?" Which, yes, you should.
Please read this
But
book.
Captain Nisrayan is like a girl, and it's not, there's not a lot of attention brought to the fact that she's a woman in charge of her own little like troop of scouts or warriors or fighters or whatever. But she's just like
She's-
a badass woman.
Super professional, badass soldier.
Yes, professional.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good.
She never competes with Mel. She just gets the job done, doesn't make a big deal about it.
Yes.
Well, Nissarin and her team get Mel to Rensselaer's, like the palace, like wherever they're going. They're going to Rensselaer's. It's the family fortress there.
Right.
But,
Which is interesting too that they're not going back to the capital.
yeah, like
Just a little
why is
tidbit there.
Chevreuse like rerouting her to his family lands?
That's
Hmm.
suspicious.
Yeah, well, and guess who's waiting for her there?
Who?
Fucking Bran.
Man, why weren't you out there trying to find your sister? That's the first question I had. I'm like, he just like popped back in when it was convenient for him. That's probably not what happened, but that's definitely
We can
coming
interpret
from
it that way. That's fine.
a colored perspective.
Mhm.
Ugh.
Well, all the pieces like fall into place for her, and like we quickly learn that the Rensselaer's family, Princess Alestra, her husband, and Chevreuse, plus tons of other leading families at court, have been carefully building up to a non-violent coup to displace King Geldrin and fix the country.
Wild.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Key here being like non-violent coup.
Mhm.
Shivraeth has been like politicking for years to get everything lined up just so until like what does our favorite country bumpkin Count and Countess of Talanth do?
Gives him an opportunity.
Well, they kick off a very violent civil war with no experience planning or real idea of what to do should they even succeed in removing King Geldrin.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Because this is very much a foil for Mel and Shivraeth's not relationship, but interactions.
Mhm.
Is he's this very careful planner, puts everything together, like
I
has to-do lists, planners down to the like 3/4 of a minute, and then you have Mel like burst in and she's like, they're gonna hurt the hill folk. Overthrow the king.
I hadn't looked at it from that perspective, but you're so right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She just like ruined all of his plans. He's like basically his whole life and probably part of his parents' life.
Yeah.
They're like, we're going to stage this coup. Like it's going to be nonviolent. Like the people are behind us. And Mel is like, anyway, I'm going to fuck up your plans.
like, all right, these people have got their shit together and they're trying
yeah.
they're trying to do the right thing by the Astiars because they're technically on the same side.
That's true. Yeah.
But, Mel and Bran like keep messing their plans up.
Very naively.
Mm-hmm. Shivraeth finally realizes it's time to clue in Mel and Bran onto like the big boy wargaming. And he could have done that earlier, except Mel was running around the countryside kissing off evil barons. And Bran, Bran very reasonably, though, listens to Shivraeth and says, like, okay, bud, you just, you tell me what to do, right?
Which irritates me because like Bran was one half of this like letter that was written to all of the courtiers it was from Mel and Bran. And they had this, idea of like King Caldron needs to either, step down or be kicked off the throne. Like it was a 2-person idea. And then all of a sudden he's okay for like Shivraeth to be like, okay, this is what I need you to do. And he's like, okay,
I'll just do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, but
Bran.
Bran. I hate he is the more rational one here.
That I will give him that.
Like, once Mel gets to like the Renslaeus family and they all powwow, get the cards on table, Bran's like, come on, Mel, stop being such a bad word.
It's true though.
It's true. Vidanric and I are all pals now, and you really need to chill out. And by the way, Vidanric is Shivraeth's first name.
That threw me for a fucking loop.
Me
the
too.
First time I was like, who's Vidandric? Like, who?
So what's Shivraeth? Like we don't have
these 2 separate people.
Yeah, we don't have enough names to keep straight already.
Yeah. Vidandric equals Shivraeth equals the Marquis equals
Renslaeus.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
And then also the guy that wears the plumed helm.
The
plumed helm. Yikes.
There's a ton of action packed in at the end of this book.
True.
After Mel finally realizes the full scope of the Renslaeus family plans, she still has some doubts. First off, she's got some older brother hero worship thing going on and thinks Bran would make a great king because he's just so like real,
Yikes.
Like this is seriously her justification for Bran to be king. He's real.
I kind of like skipped past all that too because I think in my head I just assumed that it was a really bad idea. I was like, she's gonna put like Bran on the throne, like the fuck, like someone's gonna tell her no. And
I would hope so. Well, okay, so Princess and Alestra and company are all, well, we've been kind of doing this ruling thing for centuries. And oh, by the way, my son would obviously be the next king.
Yeah.
Considering like how much Mel thinks she despises Shivraeth, this does not go over well.
Yeah.
So to Bran's annoyance, she kind of pulls out a white flag and says, we're not going to get in the middle of your coup attempt, but we really don't want to support you directly. Like, just let us go home and we'll stay out of your way.
My heart hurted. That's not a very good way to put that, but my heart hurted for Mel in this point.
I heard it too.
I feel like even while she was being chased across the countryside was in a torture chamber and all this crazy shit, I feel like she still had this naive belief that things were going to work out and Bran was going to take the throne and they were going to live happily ever after. But this is basically her meeting like, what's that term they use in politics? It's like not the establishment, I hate that term because of all of the like alt-right
Oh,
leanings with it.
mhm.
But that's like kind of what she's like facing up against now. It's like the establishment, like, no, like we're in power, we've been in power, we know how this should go. Like, I love your enthusiasm, but it's gonna be a no.
It's cute, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. Well, she's smart enough to realize that she and Bran are way outgunned
Yeah.
and
Yes.
overmatched. Like there's not much they can do to help anyway.
Mhm.
She and Bran depart, the Renslaeus family, kind of in this bitter, resentful state.
Yeah.
Mel is ticked off at the world in general, as she usually is, and part of that is almost certainly this unacknowledged realization that she and Bran just weren't good enough to accomplish what they set out to do.
My heart hurts for her. It hurted.
Mel, of course, interprets these uncomfortable feelings as just a general like dislike of aristocrats and Shivraeth in particular.
Mhm.
Bran, he's kind of a brat, but like understandably so. His whole shtick is Vidanric is a good guy, and let's just take the easy route and support them. And why can't you be more malleable, Mel?
Yes, that is a very good summation of Bran as a person. He's like, go with the flow. Like, what's the easiest option? I don't want to piss anyone off. Like, this to a T. Like,
Yep.
exactly.
And it kind of goes back to the whole Mel's character and her foil against Shivraeth. Bran does the same thing for Mel in a different way.
Yeah. Like, one sibling is the not controlling, because that has like bad connotations, but very headstrong, wants things the way she wants them, doesn't understand if they don't go that way. And then Bran's the like chill surfer.
Which is weird because he's the oldest, too.
Yeah, that's super weird because I feel like firstborns are always
They
a
have a
little
thing.
Yeah, I'm a firstborn.
I'm a
so.
firstborn.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Yep.
Yeah, they're like us. And then you have Bran who's not. Yeah.
Okay. Well, they're riding along, looking forward to returning home to their dilapidated castle, having frankly accomplished absolutely nothing over the course of several months until, out of nowhere, Bran is shot in the back with an illegal arrow.
Holy fuck, dude, this scene. It was so much just they were like talking, like riding, and you're like, oh, they're gonna go home. This is sad. Bang! Shot with an arrow.
Right, and who's responsible?
I had no idea. None whatsoever. I didn't know what was happening.
Is Shivraeth just playing a long game? Like
Hmm.
Mel panics. Bran holds it together, smacks her horse hard enough to kick it into a gallop away from him. Like, save our people, he dramatically flourishes before slumping forward on his horse again. Like, remember part 1?
Yeah.
Netflix edition, Bran style?
I did kind of appreciate Bran he was taking care of his little sister.
He was.
I feel like it's definitely like older brother vibes here. But also like that's probably not smart knowing who Mel is as a person.
Mel escapes unwillingly, and Bran is likely dead, dying, or about to be captured. She immediately suspects Shivraeth's people. Like, he had arranged for an escort to follow them home, like from a strategic distance to keep them safe, but like not tie their forces together.
Yeah.
And she believes this was his opportunity to get rid of the troublesome Astiar, since they were so ungrateful as to reject his implied claim to the throne.
Which fair interpretation based on the information we have from Mel's perspective. I feel like I don't want to be unfair to her, but also, girl.
Like, are you sensing a pattern here? Like, Mel leaps to a conclusion in favor of her own biases, and everyone around her has to work twice as hard to save her ass.
Accurate.
Yeah. Like,
sadly.
Like, no, definitely wasn't Shivraeth's people. He saves Bran and Mel again.
Again.
Like,
that poor
this story
man.
would not move forward without Shivraeth. Like,
No.
yeah.
I just imagine he's kind of like a very haggard, tired, like father snatching up these like little babies that keep her like totally on the verge of self-destruction. He's like, God, I gotta like save them again. They're sticking their fingers in outlets. Like,
but okay, remember at the very beginning, how old is Shivraeth?
Oh, that's true. He's not
the same age as Bran. Like, that's how Mel describes him. Wild. I know. Responsibility.
Oh, he's an only child? I was about to say he has older sibling vibes, like what we were talking about, where you feel like you have to control everything and take care of the whole family and you're tired all the time.
Or maybe only child things where your parents throw a bunch of extracurriculars at you, like, and that's your entire life. Like, oh, you will be the future king, and that's all you're doing your entire life.
And he's like Anyways, I'm gonna go chase around these two like
We could be
hobgoblin rustic
friends.
children.
Maybe he's like, oh, but I want to be friends with you.
He's like, wow, this is friendship. It's like, no, you're just chasing them around and saving them. We'll get there, but not
quite
yet.
yet. Well, okay, everyone regroups, and ta-da! With less than 50 pages left in the story, they're all preparing for a head-to-head battle with King Galdrin, the Evil Baron, and the rest of the troops. Like Mel and Bran really have no choice but to join Shivraeth.
I loved the final battle. It was realistic.
It was like even the author is kind of blasé about this final battle and conclusion.
True.
It doesn't take very long, and it's kind of an afterthought. That's how I read it.
Yeah, I did too.
Okay, we all know by now at least no one important really gets killed off, despite many repeated opportunities to do so. So Mel charges into the battle, fully knowing she's going to suck, but she's got to protect Bran, because he would make a better future king.
I also thought that she wanted to be in this battle, and maybe she wouldn't admit it to herself, but because she didn't want to be left out.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of got that impression from her that she didn't want this to just be, and they don't talk about gender roles, but she didn't want it to just be like a guy thing where, they go out and do the macho thing. She's like, no, like I'm fucking going out there too. Like they are the ones that want to kill me. Like I'm going to be there at least, even though I don't know how to really do anything fighting wise.
Well, okay. And for someone who's so like exuberant and like charges forward into situations, she's got a lot of insecurities.
Yes. Yeah. And this was kind of a refreshing point too, because she was kind of upfront that she didn't know how to fight. She was okay staying back, like hanging out, because she knew that she couldn't fight anyone. And I think in the beginning, she even says like, I would last 0.2 seconds hand-to-hand combat or like fighting against anyone else. And that's why she does all the like guerrilla warfare stuff. But she's very like upfront with herself. And she's like, I just want to be there. But even though I would like die immediately.
It's a pride thing for her.
Yeah, there it is. Done.
But like we can knock out this battle real quick. King Galdran sees this tiny redhead in the midst of the battle and is gunning for her. Like Mel braces for impact, except of course, guess who's there to save her just in time? Shivraeth distracts Galdran and is immediately set upon by 3 other soldiers.
Akko.
King Galdran goes after Mel again, and then fade to black.
So when King Galdran, I love this little bit because when he goes after her, it's basically like he swings at her once, she like parries it or like throws it off. He goes in again and he just like smacks the shit out of her, like, and then she passes out. But I just like it because so many times we have these overpowered heroines who, without having put the work in, without having sufficient time pass by, they magically have all of these fighting abilities, or they're naturally gifted, or they have magic. And it's like, no, she went face to face with some dude and in 2 strikes fell off her horse.
Right, like, okay, I've been
face first into the ground.
I just cringe because I've been knocked in the head a few times and I didn't black out, but I felt like I was about to.
Yeah,
and I was like in not this kind of environment.
Yeah, it's like disorienting, and she has like all the chainmail on too. So it's super heavy. In riding horses, like you constantly feel like your balance is like not quite there, and then someone pushes you a little bit over and you have all of this chainmail on, like you're going down. And she's tiny. She's like a petite person.
Little, lots of hair.
Yeah. That's why I love it, because she could not have gone head to head with some king who, has probably been fighting his whole life and had anything other than what happened. Like, not realistically.
No.
That's what I appreciated.
I agree with you.
So it was blasé, but it was realistic. I love that.
It's a perfect summary.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes.
All right. Well, remember the Covenant and the Tree People. Like the whole. I should stop calling them Tree People. It's the Hill Folk.
The Hill Folk.
The Hill Folk. It's their proper name. This is the whole reason Mel and Bran are up in arms in the first place. Like, so, like, circling back around to that issue, Shivraeth and his friends, basically the whole of the Ramalna court, pretty much despise King Galdrin. Mostly because he was a shitty human being that inspired fear in everyone around him, and he destroyed the country with his tax policies. Like everyone,
Taxes.
taxes. It's always taxes. Everyone was on board with displacing him before knowing anything about his intent to break the magical covenant that would throw the entire country into an even worse war. Mel and Bran, in the very beginning, prior to all the guerrilla warfare, like they sought to recruit other nobles to their cause.
Oh,
And
that was that letter I was talking
yeah,
about.
like you brought this up with the letter. And
Mhm.
so like they promised like the rest of the court, they sent all these covert letters to all these courtiers, promising that they had very sensitive evidence of King Galdron's intent to break the covenant.
Mhm.
Like, keep in mind, this is like going to Vatican City and saying the Pope is going to rewrite the New Testament. Like, nobody bought it. Like, nobody.
Yeah.
2 backwoods country bumpkins arrive at court for the first time claiming there's a giant conspiracy to destroy the country. Like, I wouldn't buy it either.
Yeah. And I think it's talked about later in the book, but the courtiers kind of have this very reasonable response. I think one of the characters says it or something, but they're like, you didn't offer us any protections. So it's like you're asking, you're asking us to give up everything that we have, all of our like safety, our lives, for what?
What's your evidence?
Yeah, like some mysterious piece of evidence that you're not going to tell me about directly, and you don't have any kind of like safeguards in place. Like, I would love to support the hill folk, but it's gonna be a nah for me, man.
That's exactly how that went down. Nah, we're good.
Yeah.
But Mel really does have legitimate evidence against the king, courtesy of her badass family spy, Azzy. Azzy's back. Like, all of the evidence is in this nicely folded up letter she can keep in her pocket. It's just in a letter.
Do you remember what the evidence was?
I don't. They were very...
It was like a letter from King Galdron to someone else. And he was like promising...
No, to like another country.
Yeah, and he was promising that they could have some of the color woods as payment to like help him fight or something. I bet people have like that had read the book or probably like yelling at us in their cars.
That's okay. We're gonna get some of these details wrong.
Yeah, it's just something to that effect. The color woods, hill folk were gonna die. Yada yada.
Let's return to our boss challenge score stats.
Yeah.
Okay, Galdron is dead.
Yes.
Mel and Bran survive.
Yes.
Shivraeth is competently handling the management of an entire nation and military following the sudden death of its monarch.
That's my boy.
Mine too. You can't have him just to yourself.
I'll share.
Okay. Would he be okay with that? I think he might.
No, he strikes me as one of those very I want to say a grandma, but that's not right. But like someone very
He's pretty conservative, isn't he?
Yeah, super conservative, super, planned out, like nothing chaotic ever. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
That is a person.
Lawful good.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah. Lawful good. Done.
Mhm.
Instantaneous. I love that dynamic between people though. Like you have like a lawful good character that has any kind of interaction with a chaotic good, and it's just absolute mayhem.
I love watching it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Shivraeth hasn't crowned himself king.
Oh, true.
He's way too smart for that. Plus, there are several other potentially legitimate claims to the throne. But conveniently, Galdron hasn't left behind any like child heirs.
Oopsie.
Yep. Mel is done, though. She's freaking tired, ready to go home. Bran, on the other hand, is ready to go party it up in the capital with his buddy.
Wild.
I know.
I was so mad. I'm like, you're just going to leave your baby sister to go like hang out.
Yeah. Like she's also feeling pretty internally defeated. Like for months, she's been fighting against 2 enemies, like Shivraeth and Galdron, only to realize that she royally messed up and in fact inhibited a lot of forward momentum for their cause with her assumptions about Vidanric.
Mm-hmm.
It's in this moment, Mel isn't just another heroine for me.
Absolutely.
She does some internal reflection and accountability and decides to leave this very important evidence regarding the covenant with not her brother, but with Vidanric.
Mm.
She does this knowing that her document will nearly guarantee that Vidanric gets the supporters he needs amongst the rest of the nobility and Galdron's surviving allies.
This was not her coming to Jesus moment, but her test of her character development. I feel like this was a moment that you're like, oh, wow, Mel has grown as a person. Like she has realized that she's seen all the evidence as in like all of her interactions with other people and them being like, yeah, you guys are like excited and we want to support you, but it's kind of a long shot. And she's like, okay, like I am maybe not the best person to be spearheading this revolution. My brother is maybe not the right person to be on the throne. It's like her development moment where she's like, Vidandric, you know, the Marquis should have this evidence. I'm just going to leave quietly. Love it.
It's she does this in such a Mel style though.
yeah.
Like, okay, during a lull in activities, she sneaks into Vidandric's office and leaves this document on his desk next to a pair of gloves.
Oh, interesting. Gloves, you say?
Gloves, I say.
Interesting.
Gloves.
Remember that for later episodes. Gloves is
It's a theme.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Thing, capital T, thing.
Yeah. Well, then she hightails it out of there, like without a word to anyone, including Bran, and then she just goes home.
I feel that though.
Me too. I've done
I
that.
don't like confrontation.
Mm-mm.
I would much rather just kind of like sneak out. Like parties, if I'm ready to go home, you like look around, you're like, where did Katie go? And it's like, I've been gone for like 3 hours. I am at home in bed, no fucks given. It's like, oh, okay, she's gone. I feel like Mel's the same way. She's like, nope, I'm not going to have to like, you know, talk to him.
Oh, God
Hell
forbid she
no.
talks to anyone.
Absolutely not. I'm just going to leave this evidence here. And then, like, I don't have to be embarrassed. Like, my pride's still not really intact.
It's not there, but she thinks a little bit.
By like a little thread, maybe, but she
Mhm.
doesn't actually have to like talk to him. And then she leaves. But it's like, that's a vibe. Absolutely done. A vibe.
This is why we love Mel so much.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. She's just like everyone else. Does not want to come to terms with things.
No. Oh man. Well, that's it.
Yeah. It's crazy because so much happens that you get to the end and you're like, oh shit, like
We're
that's a
done.
natural ending, but there's so much not done that you're like, what happens now?
Yeah, like where's the next book?
Mm-hmm. But then the next book is full of good shit.
It's equally good, equally full of
yes.
really cool things.
Yeah, which is impressive because there are a lot of authors that rely on cliffhanger endings or like some unresolved, like really intense plot line to make you read the second book. But this one, you're like, what is she going to do? And then all of a sudden there's a whole 300-page book and you're like, what could this possibly be
Mhm.
about?
I mean, okay, so if you didn't like this book as much as we did, because we
Mm,
adored this book, like
yes.
let's say it again, we've already read this book several times. We wanted to start our podcast with this book because it
Yes.
is so good, and Mel is such a great heroine.
And it's underrated.
It
I feel
is.
like no one ever talks about this book,
Mhm.
but it hits all of the tropes that people love.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into it without like spoiling
No, we
future
can't.
episodes.
We just have to get to book 2.
Yes. But think of all of the tropes that you love right now that are like, that's hot right now.
Mm-hmm.
This has all of them.
Mhm. It just keeps going.
And I will say, so this is Crown Duel,
Mhm.
part 1. I feel like this is the young adult book. And then Court Duel, this book 2 is like the new adult.
That's accurate.
I would say. So if you felt like this was a little bit young, the next one isn't as young.
Not at all.
So with that little teaser tidbit,
From our shelf to yours.
we'll see you on the next page. Hi, readers. If you'd like to help us pick our next book, send us a message on Instagram.
Or if you'd like to just listen, we post new episodes every Monday on Spotify, Amazon, or Apple Music. Thanks for listening.